Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of the Vampire Diaries, as well as the latest episode of Van Helsing. Like always, if you look in the description down below, I include the time slots of when I start talking about things. So just in case I'm talking about something that maybe you're not caught up with or you don't care about, you can always skip ahead to what you may or may not also care about, Like I always say at the beginning, you get what I'm trying to say. First of all, we're going to talk about this week's episode of Vampire Diaries, which was basically a big episode about finding out about Sybil's past. Apparently not just her past, apparently her sister too. So what I'm trying to understand is, so it wasn't just Sybil locked in the vault. Was there actually multiple sirens? Because the way they made it seem like it was like, okay, they made it seem like it was just one thing, but maybe it was two the entire time. Because it seems like even Damon and Enzo weren't sure that it was two. Or maybe the fact of the matter is that Celine has been out this entire time. She got out at some point. Maybe the armory only captured Sybil, but they never captured Celine, which that was that whole thing they did with Georgie and Celine in this episode I really like, because it's point it's like, oh, maybe it's Georgie who's actually especially because it's like she locked Rick up and she also knocked Stefan out, and then you see her and Sybil staring at each other. It's like, oh, so it's Georgie, but then you find out it's like, nope, Celine just manipulated Georgie into doing it. Which I brought it up last episode. I was like, okay, maybe Sybil could have been lying about her powers, because traditionally it's like, oh, Siren's powers usually it's only men who get charmed by it. But this episode, because she brought it up last episode, it's like, oh, I can make you do it, but I'd rather not kind of do that. So it's kind of like, I was like, maybe she was bluffing, but it's like this episode shows that with Celine, it's like it's possible to do that. So ladies can be just as easily affected by a siren's voice as a guy could be. And I'm pretty sure, no, never mind. Nevertheless. But it was really interesting finding out about the past and just seeing just how old they are. I think so far this makes them technically it makes Sybil and Celine the oldest things you've ever seen in a show. Granted, the only thing older than them is Arcadius, which I'll get to in a second and everything. What was it? I keep forgetting his name because it was like so long ago. It was about, what was it, like season 4 or 5? He's the dude that basically started, he's the guy that's older than even the originals, even the Michelson families. He's older than them. He was basically Stefan's doppelganger. He had the power. Silas. That was it. Silas. He could, he had that little telepathy thing where he could get inside your head and everything, which makes me, because this whole episode was kind of focused on a point of, people with telepathy. Back then in the day, it's like, if you had that type of powers, it's obviously, probably seen as kind of witchcrafty or evil or demonic. So it's like that type of thing you're killed for. But I'm thinking, that's kind of typically associated with sirens. Because the whole thing, because I brought it up last episode too, is how the fact is that the twins, Caroline's, really Alaric's kid, but Caroline's kids as well, are affected by it, just like Sybil is. So, Sybil's affected by it because obviously it's a weapon against the sirens, but that was something she never actually answered, because Alaric was like, why did it hurt my girls too? So I'm assuming just because of the story she ended up telling Stefan and everything, it's like maybe that shows that the twins have actual psychic abilities too, not just magic. I mean, because maybe they don't actually have magic, maybe they have psychic abilities, and maybe that's why, because it's like technically is it just specifically sirens it affects, or is it specifically people with psychic abilities? Because if that's the case, then maybe that's what it is. I mean, maybe them having psychic abilities is leading them to being sirens. And that could be why Celine is actually looking after and why she became a nanny. Because to me, it's like, I don't know how to interpret it. Either she was trying to get close to Alaric because it's like, oh, because of his kids, or it could be because of the whole situation of, she knew exactly who Alaric was, and that Alaric was connected to Damon and all that other stuff, and was connected to the vault and everything. Maybe that's another reason why she got close. I mean, it could be either or, but I'm really thinking pushing more so maybe specifically she's trying to be around her kids. I mean, around the twins, because they have the potential to become sirens. Side note thing too is we see that Sybil is immortal. I guess because things went down so quickly. Maybe that's why Virginia slit Celine's throat was because of that, because she knew that Celine was one. Or maybe at that point in time, maybe Celine got into her head and then, like, made her, seem all killer. Because the fact of the matter is, like, Caroline fed her blood and ended up healing. But as we can see, like, Sybil and them automatically heal. Well, I can't remember. Do they automatically? I think they have to feed first before they can heal from stuff, right? 'Cause I don't think they have, like, regenerative abilities like vampires do, where they can just heal for something immediately. So maybe they have to feed first before they heal. It's just, I don't know. Because it's like, Sybil is immortal. Like, so something simple like slicing her throat, like what happened with Celine, shouldn't have killed her. So it's like, it puts her out of the I didn't even think about that while I was watching the episode. It's like, oh yeah, she's already died before. So it's like, so I don't know. Because maybe, like, tying that in, maybe that's why Virginia was going after the twins too, was because she knew that they had the potential to become sirens. So maybe that's why she was trying to kill them as well, because she realized they were dangerous. Or, like, I mean, really the initial point is kind of like, oh, the fact is the siren can get inside your head. So maybe that's what she was thinking, like the siren might have gotten to them or something too. I don't know. The fact is that she also bit off her tongue and everything makes me think that maybe she was already under Celine's control, the reason why she did what she did. I mean, sadly, no one knows that Celine is Sybil's sister. I mean, Stefan knows because Sybil pulled him into her memories and everything and showed her, but ended up immediately erasing his memories of, like, finding out the name. Plus, Alaric, everything points towards Georgie, but sadly, we know what happens to Georgie. Georgie ends up getting killed by Sybil and eaten, and then basically ends up in kind of the afterlife. I mean, it's not, I guess it's kind of more so of an in-between world. Like, is it the same thing that kind of got Catherine, that basically, when that whole thing went down the last time you saw Catherine, she was like, a big door kind of opened up and she kind of got sucked into it. And it's like, did the same thing happen to Georgie? Is that kind of like being sucked into hell? Because it's like, because there is no, like, afterworld, like, I forgot the other side. I mean, that obviously that disappeared back in season 5. With the end of season 5, that disappeared and everything. So maybe that's just kind of the step in between. I mean, in that world, like, Georgie could still see what was happening to her body. Like, to me, the way I saw her pop up really quick, it's like, oh, does that mean Georgie's something special? I mean, the whole mark and everything. It's like, I don't think they're done with her yet. Why? Because it's Allison playing her. So I'm like, they got such a specific actress. I mean, obviously you could be nitpicking and everything and be like, okay, obviously they just picked whoever was best for the role and whatever, who showed themselves to be best for the role. But it's like, I get the feeling there's something more to Georgie's character, because the whole point of, like, her going to hell, getting a tattoo of that mark and everything, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more to it than that. And also, it seems like, kind of pushing the theory that maybe they didn't start off in the vault together, that Celine's kind of been out here the entire time, and that only Sybil was captured by the armory. It's the fact is that Sybil told Georgie to tell Celine, she's like, I'm not coming back. That's why, because, you had Stefan actually say, like, why are you staying here? Like, I was knocked out. You could have left. But she was like, no, she said, like, oh, I'm not going to, obviously I want to tell you the whole story, but also because she didn't want to go back to her sister. I mean, obviously, because of the story and everything, we found out that why they had, because, like, interestingly enough, like, Sybil kind of brings comparisons between her and her sister to Stefan and Damien, because Sybil and Celine aren't blood sisters. They grew up like sisters because they were kind of outcast because of the whole having psychic abilities and everything, and they basically were trapped on an island, and they kind of, the typical siren tale of, like, crashing ships and stuff like that. But Sybil wasn't all about that. So she's like, you know what? No, we can't do that anymore. Basically what happens is that Celine ended up bringing her the rations and everything, but and it's like, oh no, so we're not supposed to crash ships. So it's like, we have to find other means of food. I guess we'll have to go hunt those boars that are also on the island. Turns out that was horse crap, because there actually are no boars on the island. That basically Sybil was, Celine tricked Sybil into eating human flesh. That was it. Like, even the rations that they were eating were the sailors themselves. So, Sybil kind of brought the comparison. It's like, who are you in this story? Are you the girl that was already there, or are you the girl from the village? Essentially saying, are you Celine, or are you me in this story, Stefan? Me being like the girl that was manipulated, pushed by their older sibling to become to fit their lifestyle, because it's just kind of like essentially them taking their ways and kind of pushing it upon you? Or are you like Celine? I mean, without saying it was Celine, obviously, but saying, are you like Celine, and that you're a monster that ended up creating a monster just because you didn't want to be alone, making them like you because you didn't want to be alone? Like, using the example, obviously, with Stefan and Damien, like, he turned Damien into a vampire because, he didn't want to be alone. He didn't want to lose his brother. And Stefan gave a very interesting response. He was like, I'm both. He's like, in his case, he's both Celine and both Sybil. Because of the fact of the matter is, yes, his brother played a big part in, like, he kind of got forced upon the way his, like, certain parts of his life kind of got forced upon him because of the way Damon handles things. That, because Damon kind of got consumed by his own thirst and stuff like that, and that pushed him to kind of push out onto Stefan. But Stefan kind of started it all by turning him into a monster. Like, he just, obviously, he did it for selfish reasons. Also because, like, he wanted to save his brother's life, but also because he loved his brother and didn't want to be alone, I mean, that selfish reason kind of started it all. And Sybil kind of puts it in perspective for Stefan. It's like, hell is real, whether you want to believe it or not. Call whatever you want to the whole Arcadia situation. Call it whatever you want to, whether it's hell, another dimension, or what. Because that is the thing, too. Like, I guess that's where she ended up, now that I'm thinking about it, Georgie. Like, because they're saying, like, when Arcadius died, he ended up leaving, like, kind of setting out a psychic wave that basically created another layer of existence. And I guess that's kind of their in-between. It's kind of like another, it's almost like the other side, but a little bit, I guess it's kind of like a little bit of a middle ground between what was the other side and what's life. So I guess it's kind of a middle ground that he kind of created, or just kind of a space of its own. Because basically Sybil's like, I showed your brother hell, even just a couple seconds, and he was so terrified of it to kind of hold back his fear and just make doing what he's got to do easier. He shut off his humanity. Your brother is that terrified, whether you believe in hell or not, he does. And she's like, Stefan, no matter what you do, even if you've lived your life very peaceful, you've not been a ripper for a very long time, like, you've changed. That doesn't change the things that you've done. Hell is awaiting both you and your brother. I think Sybil's saying that as a means of just being like, she says that because she also, I guess, feels like, because it's hard to say, because Sybil's situation is the fact that she's serving Arcadius in a very similar manner to how Stefan turned Damon into a vampire. Celine kind of put all of this in motion because she made a deal with Arcadius, save Sybil's life, which Sybil was just like so disgusted when she found out what Celine did that she tried to kill herself. But Celine was like, save my sister, basically give them immortality. Now, they keep their immortality, they keep young by eating the flesh of people. But the whole evil soul thing is Arcadius's thing. They devour evil souls to kind of send to him because he punishes evil souls. And because initially he was actually a very nice, kind guy who had psychic abilities that could get into people's minds and everything. But that all changed the moment, like, there was a guy and he got into that guy's head. He's like, hey, you're having very impure thoughts. Let me get into your mind to kind of scrub away that so I can help you get past that. Dude got super pissed. It's like, you overstepped your boundaries. Basically, ostracized him. It's kind of turned the entire town against him, treated him like a monster, a freak. People stoned him, and then they burned him at the stake. But the whole thing was, at that moment, he saw humanity for what it was. Like, he saw them for the quote-unquote monsters that they were. And so that's why when he died, he took it upon himself. You know what? I'm going to punish those with evil souls. And that's what this is kind of all about. And the whole deal was like, hey, I'll save your sister, but you got to essentially work for me. Sybil didn't want any of this. She wanted it out, but Celine pushed her back in because probably similar reasons to Stefan and Damon. Is like, she didn't want to be alone. So she kind of made, that was kind of the whole reason why it was built upon, it was selfishness built upon selfishness. She wanted Celine to be like her. She wanted Sybil to be like her because she just didn't want to be alone. It's like, I mean, I guess another way you could look at it is being like, Celine was like, I want you to live because it's like, if we don't do things this way, you're going to die. So maybe that's one reason why she did. But, you know, I guess you could look at it as being like, oh, she was trying to be actually a good older sister and be like trying to take care of her. It's like, I know I tricked you into eating human flesh and everything, but it's the only way you were going to live because there were no other means of us continuing on. Or maybe she just legitimately it's like, I'm already like this, so I might as well make you like me too. It's like, yeah, do it because you'll like it because I like it so much, so obviously you're going to like it too. So I don't know. But you can definitely, when you look at this episode, you kind of definitely tell. It's one of those situations where it's kind of like, hey, you kind of sympathize with the bad guy. It's like Klaus almost all over again. It's like you kind of felt bad for Klaus because you see those moments of why Klaus is the way he is. It's like circumstances. He's paranoid and doesn't trust people, you know, because of everything that's kind of happened to him throughout his life. He grew up like that. So it's kind of like, you feel like Sybil is kind of the same way. As just, she's shaped by a lot of stuff that happened to her, that she kind of puts on this bravado of being just very, just like, oh yeah, I'm bad and I'm okay with that. But then when it looks at it, it's like, honestly, it breaks her heart to do the things that she does. But the fact of the matter is, she's not willing to side with Celine. It does make me wonder, could she possibly be putting her faith in the Salvatores to kind of essentially, I don't know, because it's like, is she going to continue doing what she's doing, but why is she not working with Celine? Obviously, she's keeping her distance from Celine for a specific reason, but she is continuing her work job. So it makes you wonder, does she have any hopes of stopping this? Because, like, my favorite line in the episode is, if you want to save your brother, you'll have to kill the devil himself if you want to stop it. Because she's like, whether you believe it or not, Arcadia is essentially the devil. He is just, I mean, being as powerful and as old as he is. That's why I was kind of like, Arcadia is probably technically the oldest thing this show's ever experienced. Because I'm thinking I can't remember how far back Silas went. Didn't Silas only go back, like, isn't he like double as old as the originals? Maybe he's older. It's been such a long time, I don't remember now. I don't know if he's actually older than him, but like the whole like telekinetic ability makes me think maybe he's connected to this. Maybe that's just something else completely different. So I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait to see. I mean, I'm very interested to see, like, because Celine's going to still be playing that angle because like no one else knows that it's her. You know, like I said, Rick thinks it's Georgie because she locked him up and everything. And how heartbreaking was that when Lark was leaving that mess and he's like, I guess, you know, I got to find my way out of here. I guess, you know, it's easy to kind of, you know, get rid of your sight because it's like, you know, because the door you have to lose your senses to kind of be able to find it because it's just kind of like you kind of have to sense your way to it. So, you know, it's easy to kind of blindfold yourself, but get rid of your hearing without, you know, headphones and stuff. So best way is to basically stab his own damn ears. He's like, well, that's what vampire blood for. So. And we also have Damon kind of doing his thing, still doing what Sybil wants him to. Like, because even though he's kind of broken from her spell, like, she still got her fingers deep into his consciousness, not letting go. Plus, you know, his fear of hell is kind of pushing him forward. Whether or not his humanity switch is on or off, that fear is still there and it heavily motivates him to keep going on. I really like the fact is that he was talking to that guy and everything, and then it was really messed up when you end up finding out that guy was like the first guy he met is like, oh yeah, I killed one of my. She's like, what's the most evil thing you've ever done? He's like, I killed one of the wives I mentioned before. I was like, oh, he's like, and I made it look like an accident. I was like, oh, okay. It's one of those things that's kind of like, it's not like you're necessarily doing it to good people. I mean, you're really doing it to bad people, but still, you know, I mean, you know, the vigilante side of your brain is kind of like, oh, well, I mean, he was kind of a shitty human being. He killed one of his ex-wives, but at the same time, it's like, still, because that just means that Damon's kind of sinking further and further in. And one of the guys he ended up meeting, Pete, I love the flip around and being like, oh yeah, he's actually Matt's dad. Literally asking questions. I got my answer to where the hell Tyler is, and got that last episode. And then now I get the answers like, oh, I kept bringing it up. It's like, where's everybody else? Where's Matt? And here we go. Pete's actually his dad, who he doesn't know anything about the whole supernatural world. Because that was something I completely forgot about. Like, Matt's dad has never popped up in the show before. Obviously, we know about Matt and Nikki's mom. just kind of being like a bit of a drunk and everything, because she did actually pop up in the series like for a couple episodes, but then she kind of bounced again just because things kind of, went the route that they did. But I guess like he makes this. He was saying like I came into your life a couple months, so it's kind of like sometime after season 7, Matt went off and found his dad. I guess it's because he had no point of ever being back in Mystic Falls. Every reason to stay in Mystic Falls was gone. His main reason was originally Elena. Then it was the other people around him, Bonnie, Caroline, the people he considers friends, even Damon and Stefan more so Stefan than Damon, but still considered them friends. But then, once Penny kind of entered his life and everything, that changed. And with her going, he decided to move on. But essentially, there's something. Obviously, Damon ended up getting it, but there was something from their family that Sybil wanted. For whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe it's something she plans to use to defeat Arcadius. Maybe it's something to do with her sister. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, it seems like Sybil might be setting herself up to try and break the chains that keep her bound, And sadly, we do find out Tyler is dead. I was hoping like the way Damon was talking, I was like, okay, he's bleeding out. And I was like, okay, so Matt can get to him in time, please. I was like, okay, there's a little bit of Damon still left in there because he didn't kill him, but you see him dead in the trunk. I'm like, oh, that sucks. So either he was already dead or he was just slowly dying over that period of time, and just by the time Matt got to him, it was too late. You just see Matt break down, and it sucks because his best friend's gone now. And so it's going like, because Matt already has no love for the Salvatores already. This is going to cause even more so. Even because, like Sybil said last episode, make it so that there is no coming back for Damon. He killed Tyler. They're not going to forgive him. Even Elena might not be able to forgive him for that. Because that was a thing that Stefan kept bringing up this episode. He's like, I will not give up on my brother. Like, we've been through a lot. We've hated each other. We've kind of been at each other back and forth. But, the fact of the matter is, you're a vampire. You live a very long time, so you can't spend an entire time hating each other. You always come back together, and you find a way to move forward, and just kind of, it's like we forgave each other, so... cause even Stefan's offering to take Damon's place, because it's like, it's all my fault. I'm the one that made him the way he is. So it's like all the blame, all his crimes should be on me. And just, I don't know. I'm very interested to see where everything plays, how everything plays out. Like I said, Georgie's going to be labeled as kind of the siren. It's going to be interesting to see. Because I was wondering how that was going to go. Because I was like, oh, maybe they're setting him up with Selena. It's like, oh, maybe they're setting him up with Georgia. Especially with that whole conversation when she busted into like his place and everything to get the book. Because she didn't let on what she saw last episode. Because she knows like, oh, there's like truth behind everything. But like I said, I feel like there's still something they've got planned for Georgia. And I'm very interested to find out what that is. Just a crazy episode. So many reveals. I'm just super excited to find out what happens next week. And now moving on to Van Helsing. So a lot of stuff went down in this episode. Obviously, this kind of picks up like right after John ended up getting killed. The fact of the matter is, I love Axel. Obviously Axel was drunk and everything, going as far as calling John a piece of shit, calling him an asshole. And you have Flesh being there, but like, don't you have respect for the dead part of me? He's like, really, Flesh? Out of anyone, you probably have the biggest problem with John, but I guess it's like, Flesh kind of being him. But the fact of the matter is, like, actually even joked, it's like, oh, let's put him in the freezer, and maybe by the time he unthaws, we'll have a way of curing him being an asshole. And Flesh actually laughed and everything. But you also had Vanessa being kind of wondering, like, because when she was looking down at him, I was like, I was like, oh, are you regretting that you killed him, or are you regretting the fact is that you don't regret killing him? That was kind of what's flowing through my mind. I also thought about, I was like, is that actually the first person Vanessa's ever had to kill? Because anytime she's ever had to kill someone else, it was a vampire. Like, I think John was like the first human she's ever outright had to kill. So I think there's that. But also because of the fact, she even said it, like, I had no choice but to kill John, right? Because it's like he was threatening everyone and everything. So it's kind of, he was threatening to kill Susan and everything. So she had to. Like I said, I still believe John was just like, he felt like he was cornered, like the finger was there, the knife was there. He just kind of felt like he was trapped and everything. So I guess he felt like he had no other option. So, really, I mean, he had time to be like, yo, this isn't me. But it was a little like he was trying to find a way to escape. He just, for one, he was super drunk and he was afraid. And, Vanessa just didn't give him time. It's just like, she's not about to take any chances because it's like, yo, that's my friend, throws a knife and killed him. So she is suffering from that, wondering whether she did the right thing or not. But then you have Axel being like, don't second guess yourself because if you do, you're just going to screw yourself over, with everything happening in this world the way it is. But also side note, the whole Susan Vanessa thing that kind of caught me off guard. I was like, oh, because I was wondering, I was jokingly thinking, I was like, oh, that'd be kind of interesting if things went that route, with them laying in bed again and they start kissing. I'm like, oh, it's like. Has that actually been bubbling beneath the surface this entire time? Is that why Vanessa, like, obviously she's her friend and everything, but is that also why Vanessa definitely doesn't tolerate people beating? I mean, obviously, like I said, that's your friend and everything, so obviously you would never tolerate someone, like, any boyfriend of hers beating up on her and anything, but is it also because there was a part of you that felt like that? Was there that between you? And I love Axel's reaction to it. He's like, oh, so you and Susan. She's like, that's my friend. She's like, we're just friends. He's like, yeah, special friend. She's like, you wish. And he's like, I do. He even brings it up later on to Susan. And he's like, oh, not as much fun as you and Vanessa. And he's like laughing. And she's like, oh, you're such a dick. He's like, I know. But that'd be kind of cute if that was the case. But I mean, I guess because really they're trying to figure it out. It's just kind of like maybe a heat of the moment type of thing. Just because, what was I? Oh, also watch Aftermath, another sci-fi show. It's kind of like, hey, the apocalypse is here, so emotions kind of flare. So maybe that was something that was already there, and it's like, yo, we're in the middle of the apocalypse. You saved me from John and everything because he would have killed me and everything. Hey, here's your reward, kissing you and everything. So maybe it'll be something, maybe it'll not be. I mean, who knows? I mean. Because for one, too, like, they're the only reminders they have of each other's lives, so, like, of life before. Because, that's why they're so tight-knit, is because they actually have a past. Everyone else is a stranger to Vanessa. But obviously she felt like, oh, I'm close to Axel and everything. Like, because she even told us, like, hey, you're like the one person in this group I trust. I mean, specifically, you're one guy I trust. So thanks for not being a shitty dude. And he's like, yeah, sure. I mean, granted, you're kind of stupid to trust people. And she's like, wait, what? So, I mean, the apocalypse and everything. Shouldn't trust people. And then she really got in there. She's like, what do you mean by that? He's like, so actually, I actually stole your file and actually looked at it. She's like, wait, what? Yeah, the file that you couldn't find in it, I actually kind of stole it and everything and looked through it. And she's like, what's in it? Well, the fact of the matter is that your childhood a little bit, how your mom died. Well, how your mom gave you up. And Vanessa was like, no, she didn't give me up. She died during childbirth. And it's like, okay. Because that was kind of interesting. Because that literally popped in my head. I mean, because during the time Susan and Vanessa were talking, obviously, Susan brought up her dad, talking about the fact that her dad is probably outside the porch shooting down vampires 2 at a time. Just, he's too much of a tough old geezer to kind of, take down or whatever. I mean, I say old geezer. I mean, really, who knows how old he really is. So, I don't know. Just laughing like that and everything. I was like, oh, she's talking about her family. It's like, now that I think about it, we haven't heard jack squat about Vanessa's family. And so we ended up finding out, oh, she was raised by her foster parents. And then she's asking, like, what else is in there? He's like, I don't know. Most of it's redacted by the military. I don't even know your real name and everything. And then, it still got Vanessa super pissed because it's like, for one, it's like, she did trust Axel, but then it's like, you went behind my back. And it's like, if you had read the file, I want you to tell me the truth, because she kept feeling like Axel was hiding something. And he definitely was, but I mean, he never was able to tell her because of stuff that happens later on in the episode, but I'll get to that soon enough. But it's like, it's also because he invaded her privacy, like, I mean, it's understandable because it's like, consider under the circumstances, like, I was meant to protect you for like 3 years. I'm curious to find out, like, what your whole deal is. Which Vanessa ends up finding out about later on in the episode, that basically, she looks at the file, that basically the reason why the Marines were sent there, they were sent to retrieve her. She's kind of labeled on kind of a test subject name. And it was like, oh, did Axel know about that? And she's like, honestly, I don't know. And so, like, let's keep that a little hush-hush. But that was what the Marines were meant to do. They were meant to retrieve Vanessa and bring her back to the base. I mean, specifically bring her back to the farm for experimentation. Like, 'cause, like I said, just the way Doc's sister Grace reacted, like, to me, that's what I was kind of thinking, like, Ish, like I said, is it like a bloodline thing or is it like a experiment thing? Like, the fact is that it's like there's a certain bloodline trait that they were looking for. Like they were aware of vampires beforehand and they knew that was a special breed of people. Like I said, Vanessa might be like a 1 in a million shot that there are other people out there, but and like I said, I brought the example I used was The Last of Us. Like there's a lot of people with this kind of gene that helps, this kind of almost vampiric gene that fights vampires. There's a lot of people, there's at least a handful of people who have it, and we experiment with them and it failed. And it's like we're looking for anyone with a similar anatomy, or blood system, just genetics and stuff like that. Or like she is kind of a fluke in evolution. Because even Flesh kind of brought that up in this episode because obviously the place is reeking of radiation. And it's like if we stay here any longer, we're as good as dead. Which kind of incites Susan and Dot to kind of get in because Susan's like, yo, you're such a ray of sunshine. And then like Doc's like, I'm telling it like it is. It's like, but then Susan kind of jumps on her throat. It's like, maybe you're telling it like it is because you're still a little cold hearted because there's a little part of you that's still a vampire. Which I'm kind of throwing out there is like, maybe there's limitations to this whole cure thing. I mean, if there was anybody that was kind of revert back to being a vampire, it'd obviously be Flesh. The order would be Flesh, Doc, and then Susan, just because of all that. But nevertheless, the fact is that you see Vanessa standing there. She's not affected like by the radiation. So is it her body healing? Like Flesh kind of threw out the possibility like she's kind of half like them because the vampires can adapt to their environment and stuff like that, so her body is kind of naturally fighting it all. But then Vanessa got suspicious that said, "Oh, is it something you've read in my file?" Essentially, he's like, "No, I'm just making an observation." So the thing is, did Axel know more than he let on? Obviously, because he wanted to tell her something later on in the episode, but never got a chance to. I don't know. Did he really know? Because he kept saying like he didn't know what the farm was. All these like experiments they were doing. The rooms him and Susan came across were super bloody. But the real kick in his teeth for this episode, like kicking the teeth, Gorman being an idiot. Why the hell were you going there and look for that thing by yourself? You're a freaking idiot, Gorman. You are just the biggest idiot, and that's why you got turned. That's why he ended up killing the thing, but he ended up getting turned in the process. It's like, you're such an idiot. In a situation like that, you never go off on your own. It's like, even if it's just a lone vamp by itself, it's like you get caught off by surprise, you're as good as dead. I mean, well, he ended up being as good as dead, but nevertheless, the real kick in the teeth is like the Doc finally told Axel the truth because she's just like, oh, every time you look at me like that, like I'm a hero or something. I'm not. I let him die because I got scared. I'm a coward. And then Axel was like, no, you're not. You never actually said you saved him. I put that on you. I apologize. She's crying into his arms and everything. And then later on when Axel, I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting all nasally and everything. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if that got picked up or not, but I'm getting all nasally a little bit because my nose is getting stopped up or whatever. Nevertheless, Axel went to, go look for Gorman. I keep doing it, Gorman, and she's supposed to keep the door open. And I was like, the moment he was getting close to the door and she's panicking and everything, I was like, no, she can't. She won't. I was like, okay, I was thinking, okay, for a second she'll freak out, but then she won't do it. Like, she'll think about it, but then she'll like, no, I can do this, and kind of get a little brave and everything. But nope, she did it. She let go of the button and let the door close, and then she has the audacity to stand up like, oh no, oh, why did Axel runs up and tells Vanessa, it's like, Axel, she's like, wait, what? He got bit by Norman and whatnot, and the radiation down there. Vanessa's like, okay, let me go back for him. She's like, no, he got eaten. It's like, for one, you don't know. All right. The fact of the matter is, Axel's a fighter. I mean, obviously, we see his one handprint on the glass and it slides down. To me, Axel's too much of a badass. It's like he's got main character status of like, hey, if anyone's going to survive it, he's going to survive it. Honestly, wasn't expecting John to drop dead. It's like other people, sure, but it's like I was. You know what? Legitimate reason why is because I looked at them cast members of the show one time, and it like 2 or 3 times actually, and like I saw John's name, so that's why what was the lady's name? Natalie, I think. When she died, I wasn't too surprised. I was like, because I never saw your name as part of the main cast. But nevertheless, it's like I saw like John's name. I was like, okay, so obviously he's going to be a mainstay. It's like, nope, he's dead already. So I was like, oh, because they slowly whittling that group down bit by bit. But I was like, I cannot believe that Doc did it again, and to Axel too, the dude that's fought so hard to keep you alive. You begged him to keep you alive the moment you turn into a vampire. It's like, please don't kill me, even though we made the promise, even though you got another. It's like, dude, I get being scared, but it's like more so than anything, you will think like, okay, I made that mistake once, I'm not about to make it again. It's like, dude, you could have timed that, make it so that Axel got through. There was plenty enough time, just like in that situation, there's plenty enough time. It's like, you suck. You really suck. It's like when the time came, it's like, what are you afraid of? It's like you literally have a walking cure with you with Vanessa. It's like if you get bit, it's okay, you get cured. It's like, why are you like that, dude? That sucks. And Vanessa was going to go back for him too. And it's like she could have held. Like I said, I don't think Axel is dead, but it's going to be hell to pay. And she's got the audacity to be like, oh no, the date time was running out. The radiation. I was like, dude, she sucks so much for that, dude. That broke my heart. I was like, no, please don't. I was like, no way you're going to do it. And you did. I mean, seriously, dude, kick in the teeth, man. It's like, holy crap. It was something, I almost forgot what example I was thinking of in my head. Something was making me think like, kind of almost a Walking Dead type of situation. It's kind of like, I mean, if you ever played the Telltale games, it's almost kind of like the whole, first example, like there was a Walking Dead example coming to my head, but I couldn't really formulate it at the time. At this current time, I couldn't think of. The only one I could kind of compare it to is the whole Kenny, Duck, and Sean situation on Herschel's farm. That's the closest thing I can make it, like, break it down to. So if you're familiar with the example, cool. If you don't understand what the hell that is complete gibberish to you, that's fine too. But nah, it just sucks. And then she also had the audacity to just act like everything is okay. So basically, the plan is just to kind of follow the bells now. Like I said, the group is just whittling down little bit by little bit. I do not believe Axel's dead. He's going to pop up again. Granted, you know, the vampires found another way in there, so maybe there's a way for Axel to find one out. I don't think he was that blood print was from like him being bitten or eaten by Gorman. I'm pretty sure it was probably him getting all covered in blood because he ended up killing Gorman. I just cannot believe it played out like that. I was halfway expecting him to get bitten or whatever, sure, but then go off and, you know, get cured by Vanessa. Also, one of the vampires they went up against ended up biting her, so you saw them kind of freaking out, kind of getting cured. So maybe that plays a part in Axel. I don't know. It's like super radiated down there, so it's like even Axel, like he would have to get out of there pretty soon because the radiation levels are pretty dangerous. I mean, because I think even with the quarantine door, that's still not enough to kind of slow down the radiation. So it's like he'd have to kind of get out of there immediately. So, two other side notes in this episode. We see Muhammad coming across a girl named Emma and kind of befriending her and stuff like that. Question, isn't that Dylan? I mean, granted, it's been like we haven't seen her since the second episode. I kind of legitimately forgot what she looked like, but isn't that her? Maybe I'm just being completely stupid. Like, do tell me if I'm wrong, because I swear that looked like, I was like, Mama Starfest, like, isn't that Dylan? I was like, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. So we'll just kind of have to wait to see where that whole thing goes, because there's a whole thing about those two people walking in the road and Emma just runs off and then Muhammad follows behind her, but those people don't do anything. So it's like, what's their deal? What's her deal out there looking for stuff, kind of working, like she's looking for ingredients for meds and stuff like that? Could she be connected to the resistance? Could she be connected to Rebecca's like whole compound situation where everyone's being kept? And if maybe she's one of those people to get special treatment and whatnot. So that might mean that Muhammad's closer to finding his sister, Shima, which we kind of got her side of things. We got literally the one person that was part of that little resistance group still alive, the lady that got captured. And it's like, oh yeah, this is all Shima's fault. Well, Rebecca's there being like, oh yeah, you should be like this lady. She sold the resistance out. It's like, oh man, she's just a sellout, right? Oh, she's doing us such a good favor. So it's like, resist and die, or serve us and, you know, help us find these resistance fighters, and we'll help you out. It'll be helping you out in the long run. And they ended up biting into it. I was like, I felt so bad for her. I was halfway expecting people to pop up and just beat the crap. I was like, oh man, she's so screwed. But she's in the chair, and I forgot what his character's name was. It's the actor who, I think his character's name was Henry on Sanctuary. He's been in other stuff too, but that was just, since, sci-fi and everything, the channel, I figured I'd draw the comparison to that. But he was in that, for example, I think that was his character's name. He was Henry. He was the werewolf character from Sanctuary. But nonetheless, wasn't it this? Was it this or was it Aftermath? Because I think it was this show that I kept seeing like Amanda tapping, kept seeing her name pop up all over the place as director for episodes, and just every time I say it, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I don't know, maybe she's still doing the acting thing too, or maybe she's more so the directorial aspect of things. But I'm pretty sure it's this. I don't think it was Aftermath. I'm pretty sure it's like this. I kept seeing her name pop up for like directing episodes and whatnot. But nevertheless, that just kind of popped up in my head. But he's asking her questions like, how can we do this, betray us and everything? She's like, I'm not. Then you have Shima popping up with all these wounds. She's like, I was tortured. Obviously she had to have sold us out because look at her. She doesn't have any scratches on her. Dude puts a bullet in her head. I'm like, wow. And Shima is very unremorseful. I mean, granted, in this type of situation, it's survival, but still, it's just kind of like she did it effortlessly, proving that was her. I mean, the other option is, become kind of like part of the experiment, one of the mothers that's kind of trying to give birth to the next generation of vampires and stuff like that. So it's understandable why she would do what she did. I'm not trying to, I won't lie. There's a part of me judging her for it. It's like, you did that, like I said, a little too unhesitantly. So it's kind of like, who knows when Muhammad actually finds his sister again, will she actually be the same person? Like, will he even be able to recognize her? Will he be disappointed in her actions or what? Like, she literally got someone killed. I mean, granted, she technically got a lot of people killed when she originally got those resistance people to kind of get killed. This isn't the head leader of the resistance, the one that shot the lady. It was some guy named Tucker. So I'm pretty sure the leader of the resistance name is Tucker. They're kind of like Tucker's leading this particular cell that she was associated with. So just very interesting episode all around. Like I said, that Doc thing just got to me, dude. I cannot believe she did that crap again. And she thought it was bad at first, like, oh, Axel looking at her like that. I can't wait to see what happens when she's just cracking under pressure, and I want that to come out. I wonder, will she willingly tell the truth? Will Vanessa and them constantly bring up the fact is that Axel might have been a bit of a dick, but the fact of the matter is he was a good guy. He got us this far. I mean, he literally did so much for her. He kept her alive this entire time until they got her cured, and it's like, you did that. Like, I get it. I can. From a show perspective, I can judge. Realistically, I can't, because I'm a bit coward myself. So it's like, who's to say? But I would wait a couple seconds, dude. I don't know. I just hope I would never be that type of person who chooses self-preservation over helping someone, Like, there was time, in both cases, time to help them, and she could have easily been like, okay, got Axel through, and then they closed the door. At worst, what was going to happen? He got to the door, and he kept it open. You stabbed him and kicked him, and then you closed the door. It wouldn't like that, but it's like, there was time. There was a couple seconds before Gorman caught up to Axel, so that just sucks. So, like, just guess I have to wait till next episode to see how this all plays out and what's coming next, where the bells lead and everything. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.